Time now for today's Math in the News. All right, today's Math in the News. Once again, we are fortunate enough to have somebody in studio with us. Jonathan Medina, how are you today?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm excellent myself. Thank you for coming in. Now, you work for the Kern County Superintendent of Schools.
Yes, I do.
And you're a pretty important guy because you're in charge of all the financial stuff, right?
That's what they tell me.
So your official title is?
Assistant Superintendent of Fiscal Support.
Okay, so that's a fancier way of saying you're in charge of the money.
That is correct.
Okay. How long have you been with the Superintendent of Schools office?
Originally was hired on back in 2015.
Okay.
So I spent a little bit of time at a school district as their chief financial officer and now back in our head role here.
Good. And what kind of training do you need to go through? Because some students might be like, hey, you know what, I mean, after listening to what you do, I might want to do something like that. Training,
going to college, getting your bachelor's degree in business or a related financial field would be a huge number one start.
Okay.
And then there, here at the county office, we do a training program that trains you to manage the finances of public school district funds. So coming to our office is a great avenue coming in to this field.
Good. All right. So today we're going to talk about how schools get their funding, correct?
That is correct.
All right. So I know you've got some slides for us, so let's go ahead and go through these.
I do. So what I wanted to first start and talk about is how funding gets allocated at the state level and then how it's divvied up to school districts in kind of the budget cycle. So Proposition 98 was approved by voters back in 1988, and really that sets a minimum funding level for school districts in California. And that exact funding level is determined by a couple of calculations. They take into account per capita income, the number of students attending schools, things like that. And really what it ends up calculating is, dictating is that schools receive about 40% of all the dollars that flow into the state of California.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, when Dr. Mendaburu was down here, we talking about the whole county, and we have a very large county with a great deal of students. So that benefits what you're talking about now.
Yes,
right?
it does. Okay. Yeah, the greater number of students results in greater number of funds coming to our school districts that we, again, invest in our
communities. And that's
only
one part of this, though, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. This is the state funds that are allocated. There are also the federal government and other local grants that are not factored into this specific funding. But again, overall, this is the primary source of funding for schools. There's a direct correlation between the fiscal health of the state and the amount of funding that schools receive.
Okay.
So if good fiscal health in a year, then they receive more funding, and again.
So I know you've got a presentation going, but as you go, I'm like, I've got all these questions in my mind now. So when you divvy up that money to schools, it's not the same per school, is it?
That is correct.
Okay, correct. So I'm sure you're going to get into some of those things.
Yes, so that actually rolls into
check that out.
the local control
helping you out with
formula.
I'm like the assistant to the assistant. All right, keep going, I'm sorry.
So the local control funding formula is how the state gets that pot of money divvied out to school districts. It's primarily driven by the number of students that are attending school each day. That's the single greatest factor that influences the amount of revenue school districts receive.
All right.
Now, each year the state determines funding levels based on different grade levels. So they take that attendance in the grade level, multiply it by that grant amount, and that's what dictates ultimate funding for school districts. So moving forward, all that money. So we're talking about tax revenues that are coming into the state of California and locally. Where does that money come from? Well, from the state. It comes from a couple different sources: corporation taxes, capital gains taxes, personal income taxes, and sales taxes. So districts are primarily districts that are funded from the state receive money from those sources. Another part of that is local property taxes. So that money that comes in is actually what comes in first to districts. And I've got a little visual on this next page that shows when districts receive property taxes, they receive that first. So that's the first dollars that flows in.
Okay.
And the state backfills the rest of the entitlement based on the attendance and based on the base grants. And so then once property taxes are filled up, then they come in with the state aid. And that's what's coming from personal income taxes, sales taxes, corporation taxes.
Okay, and are we able to go back a slide?
Yes.
Because a lot of students will know personal income taxes and sales tax, things that they're pretty familiar with, or they're familiar because of their parents having to deal with them.
Yes.
Corporate taxes they may not be as familiar with, but they would probably have an idea maybe if when they get older they have an opportunity where they have to pay capital gains taxes. So can you give a quick example of that for some of the other students?
Correct. So capital gains taxes, say, again, you're working at a job, you're paid, and you're looking to invest your dollars.
Right.
So you put it into, say, an index fund or some type of investing mechanism. When that money makes money, then again, you generate capital gains taxes when you pull that money out to use. So that's where that comes from.
So thank you for doing that, because I know some of the students would be like, I know some of that stuff, but I don't understand that one. But if they use their money wisely somehow, there are ways to get capital gains taxes.
That is correct.
But when you make money, you get money too.
That is correct.
All right, so let's keep going.
So that's how dollars, again, the pot of money is divvied up to school districts and what dollars actually flow into schools and how they do it. This is our budget cycle. So the state of California and school districts operate on a fiscal year that starts in July. So our year starts in July, ends in June. And our budgeting process begins in January.
Okay.
So in January, that's when the governor releases all of his projections or her projections for what they believe revenue is going to be for the year. Then we're taking the LCFF calculations and the grants and determining how much money we have to spend. And we're taking the next couple of months, February, March, April, to back into, what really are we going to need operationally to provide supports to students this year. And in May, the governor releases his May budget revision, and that's the last time that school districts can go in and make adjustments to our budgets, our revenue assumptions, expenditure assumptions, before those budgets are approved. And so that's really, again, very high overview of how district budgets are developed.
Okay. July 1st, the big day.
Big day.
All right, so that's when all the fiscal activity gets rolling.
That it is.
All right. So Jonathan, come on over real quick. I want to say thank you for taking out some time. What is one of the biggest things, one of the greatest things that you find from doing your job?
The greatest thing that I see is the impact that we have on students. I mean, in my role, a lot of it is, we're seeing expenditures, dollars and cents. But really when I am able to go out and see the impacts that we have on a school site, when we're able to modernize or improve a facility that maybe hasn't seen some love in a couple of years, that's what does it for me. I mean, there's more to it than just the dollars. It's the impacts that those dollars are having on students.
Right, and I know that a student will, because a lot of times when they have modernization projects or just, some upkeep even, it does make a student a lot more wanting to go to school. I mean, they're a little more comfortable, a little more pride in the school and things like that.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you for taking some time to come down and talk to us. And don't forget that you're the assistant, but I'm the assistant to the assistant now, because we work well together right there, all right? All right, 636-4357 is that phone number. Possibly we'll give away some fare tickets right after this.